As the economy and individual Canadians slowly recover from the financial hit of the COVID-19 pandemic, a new report finds over 300,000 federal government employees and members of parliament received pay raises within that time. The Labor Day reality check report by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation claims the private sector lost over 395,000 jobs, compared to the 149,000 new government jobs that were added between February 2020 and July 2021. It also finds all MPs received two pay raises during the pandemic, ranging from $6,900 to over $13,000 for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Well, joining us now to help us break down these numbers is Mr. Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Sir, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
So let's start with how and why CTF puts this report together every year for Labor Day.
Well, we put this report out because a significant portion of the budget just comes from government labor costs. So if these politicians in Canada are really serious about balancing their budgets and paying down the debt, then they're going to have to take some air out of the ballooning bureaucracy.
And what would you say are the key takeaways from this report, sir?
Yeah, there's a few key findings. The first one is that more than 312,000 federal government employees are receiving a pay raise during the pandemic. Then there's all members of parliament who are pocketing not one, but two pay raises while millions of Canadians struggled through COVID-19. And another key finding is that the federal government has no records of its employees ever receiving a pay cut.
And how does this sort of pay structure compare to that of private sector jobs during the pandemic, sir?
Well, what we're seeing is a tale of two downturns during the pandemic. One very real one full of private sector pain, and the other one full of bureaucrat and politician pay raises. And remember, these pay raises are going to mean a higher tax burden for many people in the private sector who are struggling. Many who have taken pay cuts lost their job. Many small businesses have had to shut down through no fault of their own. And we don't think it's fair to ask those struggling in the private sector to pay higher taxes to cover these bureaucrat and politician pandemic pay raises.
And we also found in the report that, unlike most provinces, the federal government doesn't have a sunshine list. So can you explain why that is?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, most provinces have a sunshine list to disclose the salaries of the top earners within their government, but the federal government doesn't have this. But we have dug up some documents to try to put that together, and we found that in 2020, nearly 75,000 federal government employees would be on a sunshine list because they make more than $100,000 in a year. Now, that list would have increased by nearly 6,000 employees just during the pandemic, and by tens of thousands of employees since 2015.
All right, sir, just about 2.5 minutes left here, but how should our Canadian taxpayers react to this information?
Well, I think this lands like a slap in the face, right? So many people have been struggling with pay cuts, job losses, especially when you and yours have been struggling to know that your representative in Ottawa has been gobbling up two pay raises during this pandemic. And we have to remember, this shouldn't be rocket science for politicians to reverse these politician pay hikes. We saw back in the Harper government, they stopped the pay hikes for politicians in response to the 08-09 recession. And in New Zealand, we saw their prime minister, ministers, and top bureaucrats all take a 20% pay cut to show solidarity with struggling taxpayers. And we should have seen something like that here in Canada.
All right, sir, about 1 minute and 45 seconds left here, but have federal leaders given any reason behind these pay raises during the pandemic?
Well, MPs like to say, hey, these are automatic pay raises that happen every year, nothing that we can do about it. But you know what? That does not pass the sniff test at all. I mean, if society can put someone on the moon, surely these politicians can figure out a way to stop having their pay go up during a pandemic.
And what sort of steps is CTF calling for in order to address this issue on a federal level, sir?
Well, at the very least, we want all federal parties to reverse the pandemic pay raises for politicians and federal government bureaucrats.
All right, sir. And how can Canadians voice their concern around this as well?
Well, now it's an election. Politicians have to come knocking on our doors. So we should be asking them point blank, hey, are you going to do something to reverse these pandemic pay raises?
And do we have any party leaders indicating any change in this pay process during the federal election campaign?
You know, we've got some correspondence from MPs from all different parties saying that they don't support this or they wanted to give back to charity these pay raises. But unfortunately, we have not seen in platforms the major parties address this issue yet.
All right, Mr. Terrazzano, always great having you on Forum Daily, sir. Thank you again for joining us today.
Hey, it was my pleasure.